Hi Arthur, welcome to Family Corner.
Good morning.
Well, I'd like you to tell us a little bit about what you do. You work with the City of Ottawa with the Fire Prevention Department?
Yes, I'm a fire prevention officer with the Ottawa Fire Service. And basically there's three aspects to my job. One of them is public education, which is what hopefully we'll accomplish today. And it's where I go out to the public and teach them about fire safety and many of the things that they can do to either protect themselves or their friends and family. Preventing fires, which is very important because obviously we can't be everywhere, and once a fire starts, the firefighters do their best to put out the fire, but if we can prevent it from happening in the first place, that's the best way to fight fires, really.
Right.
The second aspect of my job is code enforcement, and that's kind of like my police duties in the sense that I'll go into a building, apartment buildings, office buildings, shopping malls and places like that, and make sure that the fire code is conformed to or adhered to, and that means looking at exit signs, fire alarm systems, sprinkler systems, extinguishers, exit paths and doors and so on, and make sure that everything is as it should be, so that if a fire should start, that it'll be contained within a room or a compartment in the building, and potentially be put out by either a sprinkler system or some other kind of fire suppression system.
Okay.
And that people will be alerted by the fire alarm system to allow them to evacuate and that kind of thing. And the last aspect, which is perhaps how we learn mostly about fires, is investigation.
Oh, okay.
And that's after the firefighters have put out the fire, we'll go in to try to find out what caused the fire. And that gives us statistics in terms of the types of fires that start, and also perhaps how to prevent them and how to teach people how to prevent those fires from occurring.
So you go to the homes or to the buildings afterwards and check out the scene? And
that's right.
And okay, that's neat. Okay, so what do we do if there is a fire? How do I know that there's a fire? What are the signs, and then what do I do?
Well, if you see or smell smoke, it's very important to sound the alarm, and that could be as simple as running down the hall if you're in an apartment building, screaming fire, 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 or even in the house, just to alert other people, because in essence you're the fire alarm system.
Okay.
If there is a fire alarm system in the building, many buildings will have a pull station. It's a small red box with a handle on it.
Oh, yes.
And so you activate that, and that'll sound the alarm system in the building. If the system is monitored by an outlying or a separate company.
So they aren't all monitored?
No, that's correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So if the system is monitored, it'll send a signal to that monitoring company, and they will call us and we will respond.
Okay.
If it's not, obviously that won't happen, and the bells could ring all day and all night, and if we don't know there's a fire, then we're not coming. So in any case, it's very important to call 911.
Okay.
But before you do that, it's important to get out of the building. So if you're in a house...
Okay.
So if you're in a house...
Yes.
It's important to have an escape plan and to practice it so that everybody knows their escape routes and how to get out of the building in case there's a fire.
Can you call 911 from a cell phone?
Certainly.
Okay.
Yeah. But once you get out of the house or out of the building, it's important to have a meeting place. And the reason for that is that so everybody goes to the same place.
Okay.
If someone, let's say, the parents go to one place that they believe is the meeting place, and the children go out, let's say, the back door, and they go somewhere else, Mom and Dad will think that maybe their child is still in the building, and they'll likely want to run back in the building, and we don't want that. So it's important to have a place outside, like a tree, or a lamppost, or even a neighbor's house, something that doesn't move, that always will be there. So a car, or a mailbox maybe, or something that may not be there in case there's a fire, is not a good meeting place.
Right, of course.
So once you're out of the house, if you have a cell phone, or if you're at the neighbor's house, you call 911, and it's very important to give them two pieces of information, because when the 911 operator answers the phone, they'll ask you what kind of help you need. So police, fire, ambulance. So you need to tell them which 1, 2, or 3 of them that you need.
Okay.
And the second thing, after they transfer you to the proper service, either police, fire, ambulance, they're going to want to know the location.
Right.
So if you know the address, that's great. If you don't, a cross street, maybe an intersection,
Okay.
or a landmark, a school, a church, a shopping mall, something where we can find where your house is or where the fire is.
Okay.
And obviously if there's an actual fire, when we get close by, we'll see the smoke and possibly the flames, and we'll be able to get there. But if we don't have that information, it'll be that much more difficult to find it.
Yes, because if it's not monitored, you don't know. You don't have a magic map with a red light that blinks when you see. Okay.
Many years ago, probably 50 or more, the fire alarm systems were monitored by the fire department. So when the bells rang, there was a signal that was sent to the fire department. But that's no longer the case. So the other thing too is that the fire alarm system can't tell us what's going on in the building. So if a detector were to activate, or if in a case of the sprinkler system there was flow of water in the system that triggers the alarm, we don't know why that happens. So it could be a fault, it could be a false alarm, or it could be an actual alarm. It doesn't necessarily tell us where specifically the fire may be. It may tell us a zone of the building where it is.
Right.
But more importantly, it doesn't tell us if there's anyone trapped, if anybody's injured, and those kinds of things we would want to know, because those may be priorities when we arrive on scene. Putting out the fire is obviously a priority, but if we need to rescue someone, we want to know where to look for them first so that we can go get them very quickly.
Right.
And the fire alarm system can't tell us that. So calling 911 is that much more important, because you may have the information, for us. And so don't think that someone else called so you don't have to call. We don't care if we get 1,000 calls or 100 calls. You may have information that someone else didn't give us that's very important.
Right, of course. Yeah, that's good. So then you said that when the sprinkler system goes off, or somebody calls an important piece of information that they can tell you then is maybe what caused the fire?
Exactly.
What are different causes of fires?
Currently in Ontario, the major cause of fire is cooking.
Oh, bad cooking.
Well, some people, they think that maybe the smoke alarm is the cooking timer, but usually when that activates, it's time to call out for dinner for pizza or something. Unfortunately, what happens is that someone leaves burning oil or something like bacon or fries or something like that on the stove, and oftentimes it's late at night, so they might be sleepy and they may fall asleep, or on occasion it does happen where people actually leave the home for whatever reason. And they
be right back in 5 minutes and leave the rice on the stove.
Yeah, and 5 minutes later they come back and the kitchen's on fire. So that's one of the major causes.
Okay.
The second major cause really is electrical equipment, so extension cords sometimes that run under carpets. That's a bad thing.
Really?
Sometimes people will plug a whole bunch of things into a socket.
Okay.
Like the TV, the VCR, the computer, the DVD player, and so on and so forth. Or things that draw a lot of electricity, like an iron or a toaster oven, or a coffee maker, that kind of thing. And what happens is that as you use electricity, it actually pulls it through. The way that works is it pulls the electricity through the wire, and there's some resistance in the wire, and that causes heat. And if there's too much heat or too much resistance in the wire, it could overheat the wire, and that could melt the insulation or the plastic on the wire. Yeah. And now you may have two wires, bare wires together, that could cause an arc or a spark, either in the socket or in the wall. And now you can have a fire inside the wall. So. And that actually happens. That's fairly common. You said that's the second cause of fires, is electrical fires? Electrical equipment. So it's not necessarily that causes the fire. Most fires are caused by heat generating appliances, like space heaters, coffee makers, toasters, that kind of thing. Right, okay. In the case of a coffee maker, let's say, there's been a few fires because of that. The coffee maker may not work as well as it should, especially if it's older. There's a hot plate on it, and it's regulated by a thermostat, and if that's not working properly, it could overheat and it could melt the plastic, and then the fire starts from there. Right. So it's important that appliances work properly. In the winter, obviously it gets pretty cold, so we have space
Yes.
heaters, and sometimes people put them maybe too close to curtains or blankets or comforters, maybe even furniture, and it's because it's emits heat. It can get pretty hot sometimes, and can cause those things to catch fire. So it's good to have a 3 foot or 1 meter space around space heaters.
Oh, so I don't dry my winter boots on
No.
the space heater? Okay.
No, that's probably not a good idea. And if you're going to plug a whole bunch of things into one socket, like for instance computers and so on, a power bar with a breaker in it is a good option.
Oh, okay, a breaker is just a switch. One of
Yes,
those,
like
a switch.
a surge protector or something like that. It has like a little breaker on it, so that if there's an overload or a surge of some kind, it'll just trip the breaker, much like the panel in your house.
Okay.
And as I said, extension cords are meant for temporary use. They're not permanent use. So if you have the TV and so on one side of the room and the sockets on the other side of the room, get an electrician to put a socket where the TV is, as opposed to running an extension cord around the edge of the room.
Okay.
And don't put it under the carpet because it can get walked on and damaged, and obviously it can bear those wires and cause a fire.
Okay. I think we just have one more little question before it's time to go for the end of this section. So I was wondering if you could tell us quickly, at least the beginning perhaps, of kitchen safety. Because you said that the major concern for fires is that they start in the kitchen mostly.
Right, so if there's a pot on the stove, I would say oil or grease, the quickest and easiest way to put that out is to put a lid on it, or a cookie sheet or a breadboard or wooden breadboard.
Okay, what don't we throw on kitchen fires?
Well, we don't put water on that.
Okay.
Excuse me, what we're trying to do is suffocate the fire, right? So
Okay.
perhaps in the next segment we can get into that, but fire has 3 elements: fuel, oxygen, and heat.
Okay.
So most of the times we put out fire by taking away the oxygen or suffocating it.
Okay.
And by putting the lid on, that does that. Also, it contains the fire in that metal pot with the lid. Now you can reach over to the controls to turn off the heat and then move the pot off the element to let it cool down.
Wow, that sounds really easy to do, but obviously a lot of people in the heat of the moment don't do that. They're afraid,
most people
I guess.
think that water is what usually used for putting out fires, and firefighters know how to use water to do that, but just throwing a glass of water or something on the pot, what happens is the water goes right to the bottom because water and oil don't mix, and oil will float to the top.
Okay.
It turns into steam very quickly, and then you get a big eruption and kind of an explosion, and the fire can spread everywhere, including yourself.
Of course, burning oil everywhere. Oh goodness. All right. Well, I guess in the beginning of the next segment we'll finish off those the kitchen safety.
Sure.